This episode is brought to you by MPB. Get cash for the kit you're not using or trade it in for the gear you want at mpb.com. Hey folks, in this episode of the podcast, I get to sit down with Elia Locardi. We're going to be talking about the future of NFT. This is TWiP. Hey, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today, I'm sitting down with a friend of mine, Mr. Elia Locardi. Elia is working on a bunch of things, but one of them is near and dear to my heart and my current curiosity, and that's NFT. And what is that, right? We all kind of know what it is now. I mean, we've been asking that question for the better part of a year, but there's questions around it, both why would I want to do it? How do I do it? How do I not get, taken while I'm doing it? Where are the bad neighborhoods with this crypto stuff? All of it, and there's a million communities out there. Which community should I be engaging with? Which one should I be avoiding? You don't want to get in trouble tax-wise. All these questions pop up when you start talking about NFT. And what that does is it leads people, myself included, to pump the brakes a little and like, okay, I know enough to know that I don't know what's going on, so I'm going to hold off for a minute before I dive in. Elia is in it 100% and building some things that hopefully will mitigate a lot of the concerns that I just articulated. Elia, welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
Hey, it's always good to be here. We should have just recorded the green room as usual. I mean,
I know our green rooms are gold. I'm going to start doing that secretly.
It's like beyond outtake. All the best stuff happens. We never actually talk about what the show is about. It's like a completely different thing.
I know.
Yeah.
In our green room, we were talking about everything from William Shatner going up on Jeff Bezos's rocket all the way through to like cats and kids, right? So.
Yeah, the kittens in the office and everything. Yeah, parenting. It's all like intertwined, right? Like it all kind of it relates to our lives, and that's kind of the thing that has fascinated me about NFTs now. And I started looking at this last year, like around November. People just kept asking me, like, what do you think about NFTs? And I'm like, I'm not really sure. If some friends are like, oh, it's crypto kitties, it's just a bunch of crap, like, don't worry about it. I'm like, all right, that does sound a little silly, crypto kitties. So I looked into that stuff and I started to notice that it was growing. And by February, March and April, we were seeing articles everywhere saying WTF is a NFT. It really was at that point where like, what is this? Even though it's been around for years, and there have been artists using the platform for years. And I think now we all know what it is. It's a non-fungible token. Like we see that everywhere. But it's more now after looking at it for almost a year solid and really studying it and sort of waiting to see how I can help guide it or at least help shape a path for all of us to move forward is what it's not. And right now, aside from being a barrier of entry for, people, just regular people who don't know what it is and what the value is, it doesn't seem to me like it's a long-term solution for the art world. Right now, it's a lot of immediate sales. It's a lot of ideas. But what seems to happen is in the beginning, there's a lot of excitement. There are a lot of cool things. CryptoPunks was so successful that there's this big circle of creation that kind of that's just kind of emulating projects. And when we get into really new technology fields and new avenues, it can be hard because there's literally no real roadmap. We can either emulate or we can analyze and start to come up with things that are different. But since this has such a capacity to make these huge numbers of sales, millions of dollars within minutes, people are kind of looking for that as the reason to create art. So that's what it should not be. And art shouldn't be that just to make money. So we're looking for a way for photographers to get into this, but also for the photography industry to be elevated, to change, to maybe reform around a new community, because the current ones haven't really worked for us that well in the long term, Facebook and Instagram and everything. This could be a way where we have a vehicle to display and sell our work, share about our work, but also elevate each other, rather than just having a few people be popular in this because they've navigated the metaverse. Why not build things that actually help people, that are meaningful? And most importantly, we need to be, I'm not saying we're not, because a lot of people that I know are, we need to start thinking about the long term. Is this
Hmm.
sustainable? Will it matter later? And I think as an artist, that's really the key. And that's why you've been sitting and looking at it and waiting. I haven't released a single NFT yet because there's no fear of missing out. It's more just waiting to see how it's going to connect with everything else that I'm doing.
Hmm. And how can you contribute to the conversation versus being, hey, yet another passenger on a cruise ship? You know, how do you do something unique while also being responsible about it? Because I know you and I briefly touched on the aspect of just social, or environmental responsibility or social responsibility when it comes to these things. That's a whole nother category that when and I want to throw it at you because when I have conversations with people that are either that are bullish, let's say, there's a crowd of people that are I don't want to say irrationally exuberant, but are bullish about NFTs. If you bring up negative things about it, it gets okay. Well, yeah, but minting an NFT may cost this much of a carbon footprint, but look at this other stuff that you're doing with your gas-powered car and your lawnmower and all this stuff. So let's set the stage there first for the people that are watching this and they're maybe concerned about the environmental impact of this whole crypto wave and NFTs and all that. Where does Elia Locardi sit on that, kind of fence, I guess?
Well, it's kind of easy to get wrapped up in the hypocrisy side, like you said.
Yeah.
I guess I wouldn't say that I'm like huge into or bullish on crypto. I hold crypto. I've been doing that since 2016, 2017, just trying to learn more about it. For me, mostly it comes down to not just the blockchain, but Web3 and the way that information is going to be shared, the way assets are going to be shared, the way that ownership is going to be divided instead of centralized. These things to me are a future that we're moving into no matter what. So yes, mining, farms of mining machines, of course that's bad for the environment. We,
Hmm.
we, we do fracking in the United States. That's horrible for the environment. So we can always find a parallel. Like this is worse. And Elon Musk says, I can't do this because we're this, but yeah, the batteries you make, dude, like they're depleting whatever natural resource. We
That's
can argue
right.
that all day, but we,
Yeah.
we can't argue the fact that this is happening whether we like it or not. And it's just like anything else that we do. Like at my house, we recycle everything. I wash the plastic jar of peanut butter. You've done that. It's freaking hard. It'd be easier just to throw it away, but I don't know if they're actually recycling things here in Florida, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
Same thing with sustainability and travel and everything else. And I think the easiest way to do it right now, and there's a lot of great companies, we're using one of them with the company I'm working with called Area, is carbon offsetting. And we're making sure that everything that we mint and everything that goes on the exchange or anything like that is going to be at least a solid carbon offset.
Yeah.
And that's just the start. But what we're building in the future, and we'll start talking about this in the travel industry. Before COVID, I was very heavily working in the I called it destructive tourism, but it's basically over tourism, right? You
Hmm.
imagine Venice and you've been there with the people on the cruise ships. And it's not sustainable. It's destroying the ecosystem. It's making it not fun for the people visiting and the locals and
Yeah.
foreign companies are buying all the gift shops and the cruise ships on it's a very it's not a sustainable system. So the pandemic kind of put a hard pause on that and has given Venice specifically some time to kind of get back into it slowly. Other places have built their infrastructure to do this. A lot of the companies that owned multiple blocks or areas of cities had to sell because nobody was going to their Airbnb. So we have a chance to do this. And in this industry too, and what we're trying to do is as we build this, obviously the easiest thing before Saturday's drop is to do the carbon offset. We can definitely do that. But as
Hmm.
we start to incorporate digital assets and real world experiences and things like that, what we plan to offer, no matter if it's partnering with a hotel chain or just an individual, is ways to mitigate the impact we're having on overcrowding, over tourism, or damaging. We're going to try to employ basically all of the things I've been trying to do over the last 15 years to help make the places we work in or provide assets in better. And that
Hmm.
starts with us is this idea of area and this drop that we're going to talk about.
Well, let's talk
We're
about that because
going,
I
yeah,
want
yeah.
to I want to dive into that because the you sent me a message earlier. I think it was earlier this week or last week. Kind of, and you sent me this link about this, and I kind of click on it. And I'm looking at it, And I'm like, okay, this this is pretty awesome. So start from the top. Like for tell us what this project is that you're working on, what it's named, why it's named, what it's named, and the elevator pitch. You and I are stuck in an elevator and we got to get to the 20th floor. You got to explain this because you need me to write a check for 4 million. What does this look like?
Well, the elevator pitch. All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it in a couple. Um, okay. So the idea of area.
It could be longer than an elevator pitch.
No. I'm going to give you the elevator pitch, and then I'm going to explain. So the idea of area is we need to take care of our Earth because we love it, and there are so many beautiful locations around the world that it starts with becoming sort of creating a sense of stewardship for it. So what we're doing with this initial drop, and it's a one-time drop, we're going to be providing 4,000 packs of 10 areas that are actually hex coded, that are chunks of the map. They're randomly allocated, that allow you to own a piece of the planet as an NFT. That layer will be built upon, and there will be more things that will either exist in that ecosystem or that area, or things that it can merge next to. And we also will always find a way to give back to the people who are taking care of these pieces of the planet. Mm-hmm. That's the elevator pitch. But that's component number one.
So we're going to dive into that because there's, I have questions. When you say this drop, it's happening this Saturday, right?
Saturday at 10 a.m. Yeah.
Saturday at 10 a.m. As we record this, it's Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. This thing's going to drop Saturday, the 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, which means you're going to have to get this out pretty soon.
Yes.
Hint, hint.
So yeah. So this will drop pretty soon. So look, give us, for the people that are listening to this, remember the audience is me, right? Or me with varying degrees of less experience and more experience, but I'm kind of in the middle there. If they're like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but what's a drop? I know what an NFT is. I haven't minted one. This thing is, you say it's going to drop. What is that, a good thing or a bad thing? What's a drop?
So what everybody tries to do, and the metaverse is very guilty about finding different ways to describe things you don't understand. So it's like, what the heck is he talking about? WTF is an NFT. It's basically, the initial drop is when things go for sale. And in that sense, that's when this is going to be minted. And that's when this one-time release of these 4,000 packs of assets are going to become available until they sell out. And then we're never going to be doing this again. They exist. They can be traded, but we're never going to divide this up again. And what this does is it creates what we call the meta layer. So this is the foundation of what a lot of the other things in Area are going to be built upon as we release it. And it's different than a lot of the other things, because when I learned about this project, I immediately looked for parallels like Earth 2 and things like that. And nothing was the same. And what other people are doing, and there's a couple of cool projects, but it's like, we want to create a VR universe where you can own real estate and build on it in this, VR world. And that's cool, but that's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is build a meta layer in the real world and find ways to interlace this layer and this digital part of our lives with our real lives in a meaningful way. And it kind of starts with this. This is the first drop. This is the first offering that we have of geolocated assets that will become a big part of building the next layers, we can call them. I've used Photoshop, layers.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's obviously a direct analog or real estate, right? Traditional real estate where it's finite. There's only so much earth to go around, and if you buy a piece of it, it has intrinsic value because it is rare, right? It's one of a kind. How does that translate over into the area world where if you're selling, let's call it plots or parcels on a finite planet, and then someone else says, well, okay, I'm going to build something that's kind of like Area, and we're also going to sell the planet. And then another one says, we're also going to sell the planet. Is that so? I know you've probably gotten this question before. So how does that work in terms of exclusivity? If I own Manhattan, can 50 other people also buy versions of Manhattan? How does that work?
Yeah, you could create something similar. It's just not at the same scale. So a lot of this, the success on this in the longevity really has to do with what we do next with it.
Hmm.
And the author of our contracts is he's actually the creator of ERC 721. So it's really quite well coded on the blockchain.
Hmm.
But what we also plan on doing is sort of building on this as a foundation. So the ownership or the pride of ownership as a collectible, or however you want to, kind of treat it, is one layer. But then other things we build on top of that, I'll get to it, but we have an explorers guild, we have,
Hmm.
real world and digital assets that you can find and collect and different things like that. Everything that we do is always going to tie back to this idea of plus codes. Plus codes are a way of basically geotagging a location. So you can look up the plus codes. So this is the way that our Earth is divided, is actually perfectly even into these plus codes. And everything we do is going to tie back to that. So let's say you do own Manhattan, right? And then we're building a project with a New York-based photographer, and he's doing like a 200 image series. Well, those images are going to be geotagged. And if they're geotagged, then you're always going to get something back. And we're working out the percentages now, but the holders of this land or these areas are always going to receive benefits from things being created in their areas,
Yeah.
which is pretty
In that
cool.
world.
And that's well, sure, in that world, but it's all
Yeah.
real life assets and digital assets. We're not asking people to log in or jack in or whatever we say to that. We're talking
Yeah.
about Snow Crash.
Yeah.
It's really an interface between what we're actually doing and what we're creating. So it's a foundation layer, and it's a cool way to start with geocoded locations, because it's kind of like, it's somebody who's been traveling for the last 15 years and loving all these places in the planet. Like I'm part of the company, so I'm not allowed to buy any, right? And I'm like super jealous, because the other thing that makes this kind of unique is when you buy one of these 4,000 packs on Saturday, you get 10 plus codes, so 10 pieces, 10 areas, random. So nobody knows what they're going to get. So you could
Oh,
get
so I can't
New
choose
York.
Manhattan.
You can't choose any of this. It's a random division
Oh,
of
I
the planet.
love that. Oh,
But what we've done is we've withheld areas that are just ocean, so that layer between the Arctic and South America and everything,
yeah.
for later development, and also to prevent somebody from buying like 10 packs and then like getting all ocean. They were like,
Yeah.
okay, coolest thing I have is the Mariana Trench. Yay. You know what I mean? So
or a bunch of Antarctica with nothing on
right.
it.
And we have Antarctica, we have things like that. So you never really know what you're going to get, or what piece of what you're going to get. So that's where it becomes sort of highly tradable, because people want their hometown. They want places that they love. Everybody wants like Paris and stuff like that too. But yeah, you never know. You don't know what you're going to get until you purchase.
So
And the
it's almost like
contract
it's going to be like a slot machine kind of, right? Where you're going
Yeah.
in, you put your money in, and hey, I got Paris, or I got Tulum or something like that, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's kind of cool, because after that point on the exchange too, you can trade. And you can collect the areas that you want, and we have a nice interface that comes up, and it's a really pretty process when you get to know these areas. And we're hoping that it instills sort of a sense of pride and like I said, stewardship. People really want these areas because they care about it. And then when we start building really good sustainable initiatives and working with different causes and everything in those areas, we hope that this network of people becomes as involved as possible. So the other hope is, we have ways to limit the spam purchases and everything, so that one big person doesn't come and buy like all of these things. Like we want as many people to join in this as possible, because we want this foundation and community to help us contribute to what's next.
Yeah. So you're mitigating world domination, right?
We're trying to, and yeah, there's no landlords. I mean, you don't have to be involved or actively involved in the things in Manhattan if you have Manhattan, but we encourage you to do it.
Yeah.
We encourage people to pitch their ideas. In the future, we want to fund different ideas that build on this technology too.
If I own Manhattan, and I hope you can screen share and take us through what some of this stuff looks like
I will.
in a second. But if I own Manhattan, other than let's see, I have questions. So other than trading rights, like I own Manhattan and I can sell it for X whatever, or trade it to someone for something else. Other than that mechanism, what does that give me? Once all this is said and done and all 4,000 plots are gone, does that mean there's an instant society that's built inside of this earth where, now there's suddenly a person that owns San Francisco who has much more let's call it cachet than a person who owns Tracy, California, where I am, right? So, is
Tracy,
that
California.
like
Yeah, I think.
you're instantly minting a hierarchy of authority, because if overnight I own Dallas, Texas, then I'm somebody, versus the guy next to me that overnight owns, a different city that's not as valuable, let's say, as Dallas.
Right. There's the mentality of that, but it could have a higher value in trade at that
Yeah.
point. Like,
Hmm.
maybe it's hard for you to trade your town for San Francisco,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that every other place doesn't have value. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
what we really hope that people start looking into it, like really, really diving into the satellite images that we have on it too, and finding out what's there, what historical artifacts. And one of the things that I want it to do is show people a little bit more about areas that they might not know about, because
Yeah.
that's sort of the problem we've had in tourism is we have all the hot spots, the hot zones we can talk about, but there's all this beautiful stuff around there that we just undervalue because
Yeah.
maybe it's not the most beautiful photo, or it wasn't on Condé Nast, or whatever
Yeah.
reason,
It
or
could be personal to
actually,
you, right? Could
well,
just
yeah, it
be.
could be it.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
was
well, a
born
lot
in
of things
Flint,
are.
Michigan. I'd want Flint, Michigan. Not many people probably, I'm guessing, would want Flint, Michigan, right?
I
So,
mean,
but I'd want it. So,
and and as far as the community thing, yeah. So people who hold areas will have access to a few of the community perks that we're going to have too. So
yeah.
I'll go ahead and pull up the site, because
Yeah, and
again, this is just.
while you're pulling that up, I'm curious. So if the one side of it is the training or the trading, and or the cachet of ownership, or just your personal reasons for ownership. But once I own a plot, let's call it Dallas. If I own a plot, I'm using plot. I'm not sure if that's the right terminology.
Sure, we say area just because it's easy.
Okay. Yeah. Once I own an area on in the service, what else does that give me? Like, does that give me easement rights for that, in the metaverse? Does that give me, can I subparcel that out and sell pieces of that and microtransactions to other people? And do I get a percentage of you see where I'm going with this?
We have a few things that I can answer.
Okay.
Does it give you credibility in the metaverse? I mean, maybe, but also keep in mind when I say marketplace or exchange, like, yeah, you can trade on the area website, but you can also take this like any other digital asset and put it on OpenSea if you want. You can, this is an NFT. It can be anywhere you want it to be. It can be in your ledger. It can be in your MetaMask. It can be on an exchange. So you can trade it any way that you want. And
divide it? Is it divisible?
So we will be the next phase is to make that happen.
Okay.
So you will
asking
be
the hard
able
questions
to
a lot.
fractionalize this. And I think we say it on the website too, but we're working on that part of the contract. We have to enable that part of the contract. But the way that we're treating it is, yeah, let's say you fractionalize this, you burn that area, and then it turns into this divisible amount that you can then break up, but you can never put them back together. So there is something like that, yeah, where you can sort of fractionalize it. So we have some plans for that to make it fun. So yeah, let me just share this screen, because what's really funny is, a few months ago when the initial team approached me about this project, it was funny. Like, I had a lot of those questions. So I'm like, okay, so I have a piece. So what does that mean? You know what I mean? Because no matter how long I'm in this NFT universe and the metaverse in general, the more I get confused on other things. Like I figured this out, and then there's like a whole nother rabbit hole to go down that I'm like, whoa, okay, I need to stop here. Yeah, so it's kind of at its very base is owning the locations of the planet we love, and it could be anything that you love. But the cool thing is the way that this is divided into unique plus codes that actually border each other. So this is basically what you'd see. You'd see this little piece, and we're showing just a couple as an example.
Okay.
And to answer your questions, like the ultimate, collectible, if this becomes the standard network, and yeah, you could take a Google map and divide it up and make an NFT. You could take a cat photo and make it an NFT. It doesn't mean that this can't be done another way, but it has to do with where we're going with this, and since this is a one-time drop, there are not going to be any future land sales. We're not going to divide this up again. We're not going to create another Earth or an Earth 2. Like Earth 2 is a virtual sort of marketplace. It's not Earth 2. This is our planet. This is something we care about. And it's really key that we figure out a way to integrate these things. And that's really the foundation of this is how do we create a real interface between our digital and physical worlds? Not like going somewhere and posting to Instagram and getting likes. That is not an interlacing of our world. That is logging into a network to get attention outside of the real world. So it hasn't really done that. How do we layer these things together and be meaningful? So what's really also cool about it is it does have built-in fractionalization. We haven't announced exactly how that works yet, but yes, you'll be able to split it up later as sort of a future thing, as divisible pieces of land. But it's kind of a cool term that we use in exchanges and marketplace called burning. Like, imagine you have a token, which is basically what a NFT is. If you're very curious, it's basically just a token, just like anything else, works like a piece of cryptocurrency. You have to burn it. So upon burning or destroying this NFT, then you get the other ones. It's kind of like if I give you a token for a free coffee and it has value, the only way you can cash it in is to burn it, destroy it. So you have to decide if that's something you're willing to do. So where this is kind of neat. And this is where a lot of the projects that we're seeing now, they're cool, but they're really layer one is, divide this. Layer two is build the virtual world. Layer three is live in the virtual world and sell virtual real estate. That's not where we're going. We're wanting to tie into real world experiences for artists, for creators, for futurists, and just people that want to see the evolution of this become sort of a modern day world, so to speak. Real world, metaverse, we like to say metaverse, analog, digital, whatever this is, we're trying to build that future. And first thing is the collectible, tradable, ones that you take pride in, pieces of the earth. But the next thing is to start thinking about the world in travel as if we have NFTs fully integrated. And this is a kind of a hard thing. This took me a few months to really understand where we wanted to go, because some companies are starting to do this. For example, hotel rooms are NFTs. Does that make sense?
It does, because they're non-fungible. There's only one. It's kind of like a condo. Sure. Like a condo is a de facto NFT, right? Right.
So some companies, some hotel chains in Greece have actually made all of their rooms for next year NFTs. So a lot of experiences or tours or packages are having either digital and real world assets, or they're becoming NFTs in themselves. And it's kind of like a really fun thing to watch, because nobody knows exactly which direction it's going to go, and they're kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall and see if it sticks, if it's cooked. But this is sort of the future. Right? 5 or 6 years from now, we're not even really going to think about it. It's just going to be fully integrated. And the last thing is artists and creators. And I think that what I've seen the most is exchanges and marketplaces, Foundation, Maker's Place. Obviously, we have OpenSea. There's so many of these things, popping up. And for every photographer that's successful, there are hundreds that aren't. It's just like anything else right now. It's such a rush to get in there. And I think the question I get, people who are NFT enthusiasts and people that aren't, and especially in photography, is the question is, why is that selling for so much? And why is this not? And this is not a new problem in fine art, right? Because we've all gone to the MoMA or museums, and you're like, I just don't get it. It's a banana duct taped to a wall. I just don't get it.
It's a white box with a red dot on it. Why is it $3 million?
Exactly. Profile photos are huge right now. Creature World, which I like a lot of them, but they do have utility. But obviously, for photography, it's a little bit different. So what we want to do is create a community and really a platform for photographers to grow. And I can get to that too. But it's really right now is just getting started. Buy a pack, own a piece of the earth, help us support and create these next things that we're creating. And that's kind of where we are now. And the next phase is, we have a really talented team. Will Entrican is actually the lead author of ERC 721. So it's kind of fun, like when people are like, oh yeah, I wrote the book on that. No, I actually wrote what people are using to mint NFTs. He's way smarter than me. Paul Neal's been to 100 countries. He does these crazy expeditions to places, like the Titanic and all sorts of stuff like that too. So what we're really trying to do is build, this whole connected world. So Saturday is our first drop. And then we're going to be announcing the Explorers Guild, which is going to be a community of like-minded people. We're going to offer real world travel events and different things that they have access to. And right now, the criteria to be part of this Explorers Guild is to own an area, to have a piece of area. So it's going to be a reward system for people that help grow this foundational community.
Smart.
And then later, obviously, if it's something you want to get into, you can always purchase, areas later, depending on that. And then the photography aspect is something that I'm sort of working on right now. Yeah. I don't have any images for it yet because we're waiting for this to launch or drop, or however you want to say it, before I announce a photography genesis drop. So there's another word that we're hearing. It's actually like the first drop. It's their Genesis collection, is like their first collection. But what I'm doing is putting together a group of photographers, 100 to 200 photographers that are going to provide artwork for this, and essentially help us sort of build this future where we're raising everybody up and helping to curate these new galleries and start to help to integrate the fine art world and the photography world into the NFT community, and helping the NFT community sort of get into this, because there's a big divide right now, not just in what we understand about NFTs and what we understand about art, but it's a complete communication breakdown. When we start talking about what this metaverse is and what fine art is, and that's really, I've been waiting to work on that, and I've almost joined a couple companies this year, launching marketplaces and everything. But it was very, very rapidly from February to about April, I realized that a marketplace is not the solution, because Amazon's going to have NFTs, eBay, Coinbase just announced yesterday that they're going to have NFTs. This is going to be so common. You can put them anywhere. So what does a marketplace do? It gives you a place to sell things, but you can sell it anywhere. We need to create a community. And if this is going to thrive, the fine art community wants to integrate or have a relationship with the NFT community. We need to communicate with each other. And we have to have people that have experience in both that can help and elevate, rather than just trying to take something and sell it for the maximum profit. So
it's
part
the
of this is
the old gold rush, right? It's like, okay,
rush,
this person made $1 gazillion selling what I perceive as not something that's not very valuable. I have lots of not very valuable things that I want to try. Maybe I should try that. And on that tangent of value when it comes to NFTs and determining value, can you help me, or help us, the listener / viewer, understand how this works? Because if you look at an NFT, and if someone of note with a big audience mints an NFT, they can drive up the price of that NFT. And I'm guessing, depending on how they distribute it, whether it's an auction or some other method, but they can drive up the intrinsic value of that NFT, essentially minting money, right? By pointing their traffic over here. If they got a gazillion followers, they make this thing and they point a gazillion followers at it. Even if 0.1% or whatever convert on that thing now has value just from them sitting there at their phone punching a bunch of virtual buttons, right? So, but then conversely, if John Doe on the other side, who is a fantastic, forward-thinking artist, mints an NFT but has 12 followers, how do you reconcile that? Or in other words, are NFTs only for people that already have, or making money off of NFTs, only for people that already have established audiences?
Yes and no. I think you can kind of parallel the degrees of fame and influence to sales. It kind of like looking at social media, right? Like we had social media 2011 to 14, 15, Google Plus, and then Instagram got on the scene now. And it is what it is. Like, it was easy. I mean, starting 10 years ago, it was easy to build a profile on social media because it was new. Now it's hard, that the signal to noise ratio is just way off balance. There's just a bunch of noise out there, but that also creates opportunity for quality to come through. So if you're a celebrity, it's pretty easy. Elon Musk can honestly take a dump on a piece of paper and say this is an NFT, and like everybody will buy it, and then Dogecoin will go up,
Yeah.
It's so you do have that happening, but that's not exclusive to this industry. It's just that it's a hot commodity right now. And when celebrities jump on board, it kind of opens up those floodgates for other people to kind of gravitate towards it.
Sure.
And honestly, we're seeing, the Sotheby's and everything, these auctions for multi-million dollars for stuff that, and frankly, for artwork that wouldn't hold up anywhere else. And that's, I think, what's it's becoming hard to quantify. But in order to get into that's really, where is this community? Where are and who are the collectors? And do the collectors actually know what they're collecting when it comes to photography?
Right.
And that's hard, because that we're really leaning into people that may be really cool art collectors, or they may have just bought Bitcoin in 2010 and they have so much money that they can collect whatever they want. So this is hard, because right now there is no sort of guiding light for it. And in the fine art photography industry, and this is my industry, so I can help with other art, and I'm pretty good at drawing parallels, but I'm not an expert with a lot of other things. But with photography, there's been a big issue with fine art galleries, gatekeepers, all that stuff that we talk about. A lot of the work that's hanging is questionable, but it's a reputation that you kind of have to build, whether that's good or bad. Whether that's your friend owns the gallery or you're friends with somebody at Paris Photo, that's great. It's networking, it's part of life. But it takes time to sort of build that profile, using some of the social media, using your connections and everything to get sort of gallery space and get that, reputation up. What's different about this is you can instantly just create an account on OpenSea and mint something. And right now. So that's it. That, are you able to sell something, or is it going to get lost in the pile? And right now, it's probably going to get lost in the pile. And that's a shame, because we have very, very talented artists that may not have a huge following. And that's been a problem with all the other social media that we've had too. But few people are doing really well, regardless of how good. And I know that's, subjective. And then we have people that are being left behind. And that's sad, because I think it's difficult if you really care about your artwork and you put it somewhere and there's nothing there. Nobody buys anything. That doesn't make you feel good, but you shouldn't judge yourself based on that, because there's so many people doing this. So I think we have to kind of get back to the point where we have to establish ourselves a little bit and do a little bit more research, right? It's not just like this new thing, right? I'm just going to put my work on here and it's going to be this amazing thing. And that's what a lot of people are trying to do. It's right. You were an artist for a little while. You've had some success in certain areas, and that's really where you have to start leveraging that, getting into the communities, understanding what's actually happening in the commerce side and the business side here too. So it's really, really tough, because it seems like it's happening without you, because it's happening so fast.
It does. And it's like this is maybe a parallel conversation, but the motivations that we talk about this on the show a lot, the motivations of a photographer, and I boil it down to, why are you creating stuff? Why are you a photographer? Are you a photographer because you want to create something that's ultimately going to go up and go into a gallery and be sold, like, the stuff that you do, Elia? Or are you creating something purely for yourself? You couldn't give a crap if anybody looks at it, it's for you. Or are you creating something for social acceptance? And these are three, not an exhaustive list, but those are three things, and the social acceptance is, I'm going to put this out there and I'll feel validated if I get more than 3,000 likes on it. If I don't, then this piece was a failure, right? So with NFTs, I see it as like the next leg in that table in some ways, where now, instead of just someone clicking a like, which costs them nothing and means next to nothing, now there's a dollar value and real weight associated with that like quote, right? Am I off base there, or am I kind of close to it?
No, that's something that I touch on a lot in Moments in Time and the video series, and a lot of conversations in the industry. And there are a lot of tangents to go on that. But what I've come to the conclusion that photographers and artists do things for, there's just two reasons, actually. They either have an intention or they want attention. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? You should be getting attention for your intention in your artwork, but that's really the disparity we have. That's where social media has hurt our art. That's where certain things in this community are forcing people to compromise their sense of art to try to sell something. That's the big fear I have for this. You know, it's shiny right now. The people that succeed will keep doing it. The people that should have succeeded, if they would have had a little bit more help or guidance, will have to move on. You know,
Yeah.
and they'll feel like it's a missed opportunity. But I think that if you boil it down to that, I started creating I didn't want to say like I don't want to be a famous photographer. I don't want to sell work. It's like, yeah, of course you want to sell work. Like, who doesn't want to sell something? It's not a bad thing. You
Right.
know, I'd love for this to sell. But I created the work because I wanted it. You know, it fed my soul. I needed to do it. I needed to do it for my life. You know, to create. And then I just found ways to try to be successful. Social media, yeah. And I haven't posted. I posted Instagram for the first time in like 6 months the other day, and I'm like, oh yeah, hey guys, I haven't really been back because it's I've just gotten tired of it. And this is what happens. This is the cycle, right? You have an amazing artist, and they finally get the attention that they deserve, because that they deserve. And then what happens is they start feeling like, in order to keep this audience or to keep this attention, I need to keep producing art. Then, you know, it starts out pretty easy to do this, and then it gets harder and harder because you're trying to make better work or new work. And then you're getting likes and feedback based on this. And then you start to transform your work into what's just getting you likes. And a lot of photographers actually start to create worse work because they're doing it based on the attention that they're getting rather than what they were creating initially. So that's compromised. In the NFT thing, in the beginning of the year, everybody was creating motion art with their photos, which is not a bad thing, but that was what everybody thought. Like, oh, they have to move, so I'm going to take my photos and make a move and sell it. I don't think many people were thinking that was like a genuine thing that they wanted to do, but they were modifying their art to sell on a new platform.
That's right.
That's the wrong approach if it's 100% for that. Is there some medium where your creative vision and the intention for your work meets that space? Of course. But I think as artists, like, we have to take it back to that. And if it is like, yeah, man, I just want to be a Instagrammer or a YouTuber, and it's horrible in kindergarten class, that's what kids want to be now. You know, we want attention for something, but what do you want to do? Oh, I don't know. Well, you want attention for it. Yeah. I just want I want a bunch of attention. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to be a YouTuber. Yeah, but what are you going to do? Oh, I'm not sure. You know, it doesn't actually have a root of intention. It's just what they want as far as attention. So that's what we're seeing in the NFT community. Is the same thing when a new social media platform comes out. Yeah, it's a gold rush. It's like, we need to get as much real estate while this is still hot, so that we end up at the top and don't end up at the bottom. And that will start to dissipate. But that is intention versus attention.
Intention versus attention, and inside of that attention, you could break that down into likes, hearts, plus ones, or money, right? Right.
Well, we just watched the Facebook congressional hearings and stuff like that too, and man, like the science behind engagement, and they're finding like their study was that the reason they started rewarding creators with opportunities was it made them create more. You know, YouTube's entire model is just to keep you on YouTube. That's all they want. Every second you spend just trying to keep you there. And they reward you for that because you'll create more. So they spend money on creators. They know that creators are going to create more. It has nothing to do, well, I'm sure there are good people that work there too, but this is the society that we've birthed together now. Right? Yeah. This society of attention, again, in this place that we've made matter. You know, this is our metaverse right now, right? Instagram, Facebook, and
can you talk about that a little bit, Elia? Just, you know, as we put the landing gear down to come in for a landing here, the metaverse, right? You mentioned Neil Stephenson's Show Crash. We were talking about that book, which we've both read a couple times, which was kind of one of the seminal works around portending this whole idea of this virtual world that we go to from our dystopian real world, right? And they called it, in the book, they called it the metaverse. We're seeing Facebook move in that direction with, you know, who knows what Facebook will look like in 10 years, but arguably some of it will be in VR. Are you seeing, from your perspective, you know, a company like Area that's putting a virtual layer in place over the planet? Is that going to manifest in AR or VR in some way? You know, like if I own Texas and I put on some of these rumored Apple AR glasses, will I walk around and see a sign that says, "Hey, this area is owned by Frederick Van Johnson"? You know, that kind of thing. Are we going to see it manifest in the virtual?
Well, that's the hope, right? And we've seen Google has put together. I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I forget. They basically scanned and photographed every piece of artwork in every museum, for to have this archive that you can visit and look at and understand and compare artists together from, the past centuries. And then I'm pretty sure I can talk about this. Sorry, SmugMug and Flickr if I can't. Flickr, for example, is the largest holder of, as far as amounts in total go, of Creative Commons images in the world. Like they have more, like tens of millions photos. And there's companies like the Department of Interior, the Defense, NASA, they all use this. They reference these, they upload to this. And we have this rolling archive of photos from decades ago and more and more. And every year after the 75 year, I believe it's when something becomes public domain, every year we have images going into public domain. Where are all these images? They're actually on SmugMug server space, which is Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. Yahoo was going to just let this die and delete it. So can you imagine if SmugMug didn't buy this and the largest collection of historical photos just went
gone
like that?
Yeah.
So what they're doing and what they've done is they've created a nonprofit organization separate from Flickr and SmugMug that will take care of these images perpetually and be self-regulated and guided, so that no matter what happens to these other companies, they're ensuring the legacy of this historical archive of photos for generations to come. That probably was the coolest thing that I heard, besides the museum initiative that Google did, where it's like, we want to, in chronology, put these pieces together so people understand art, history of art, and preserve it for future generations. Mm-hmm. And what SmugMug and Flickr just did is amazing. We now have access to this historical archive of images, and we will continue to, because it's going to disappear, right? Yeah. So a lot of these things kind of get, bulldozed or rebuilt. Now, Facebook, Oculus, it's amazing. Like, I actually do play almost daily at night. I play like even Demio with friends, I love it. It's fun. But it doesn't translate into my real world. It's like it's a video game, yeah. and VR is immersive. It's fun. I think that MR, mixed reality, and AR, I think MR sounds cooler. And I think that's what Apple's going to use. Once they put it in like the device that looks like your glasses now, we can roll the phone over and see galleries. We have Adobe created, we can create online NFT galleries, and then you can do them and people can log into them and see them. These things are layers. They're still layers, but they don't really truly integrate, and that's really, I'd love to see, and we have it too, but you have to have it in a certain app, MR layers in the loop, MR layers in technology things. Like when you buy a camera, it'd be easier to just look at it in mixed reality, and all the buttons you can just point to and it tells you what they do, live instruction with your camera in mind, that's giving you the settings and showing you what dials to turn. This is all the future that can exist on this, but it's all, it's so insulated inside of a specific app or a specific thing or an extra device. What we're going to start seeing is a larger network. So a lot of the companies that are just creating VR worlds, like Facebook is going to, it's great. I'm going to play these games, but you're probably not going to get me into that metaverse, to be honest. Yeah. I like the Oasis a little bit. I like, Ready Player One, the book. Don't get me started on the movie. I want to punch Spielberg in the face for that one. But, the book's good. We've seen this Snow Crash. If you haven't read that, Neil Stephenson's amazing. It's a little dated now, but it's still so good.
Amazing.
The Diamond Age is so good. Like his work at that era, like that 10 years that he wrote, it's insane. But right now, what the metaverse is it's sort of self-proclaimed, and it's on Discord for the most part. And this is the layer that they have embraced NFTs. And we're going to stop calling them NFTs. They're just digital assets. It's a digital, it's a photo that you're selling. It's just the NFT part is it's in the blockchain. It's in a ledger. It's in your ledger. You keep it in literally the ledger device, which I have. But it's just the start. Nobody's really solved this. You can have something, you can have an experience that doesn't translate into something else. The way I like to think about it, and this is kind of a weird reference, is you remember Foursquare?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
So I'm starting to think that Foursquare was really ahead of its time, because the idea of checking into a location seems really cool now if it integrates into what I'm already using. If it already integrated into Apple and my photos, and I could have this map of areas that I checked in, with the photos. I'm like, man, that was actually, it seemed so dumb at the time. And I'm like, man, that's really cool. Yeah. So an area, could we create these, could we combine geocaching or letterboxing into solving puzzles in the real world to award digital tokens? Can we reward travelers that get off the path to discover locations that unlock other experiences. These are the kind of things that we're thinking of ways to entice and enhance our real world experiences and really merge them with digital. So it becomes intertwined rather than separate. These are experiences that work together, that we talk about together and we use together. That to me is the future of this. And I think if you start searching metaverse and everything, and it really is a community. And if you don't follow NFTs at all, you probably don't know what CryptoPunks are and you don't understand it. This is the current state of it, and it is made to look like it's 1992. I mean, that's really my first HTML.com. And they're kind of going that retro route because that is sort of because of Neil Stephenson and because of everything else. It's not this super high tech future. It's this lo-fi sort of classic sort
grungy of thing. Star Wars kind
to the pixel. 2-bit.
It's 4-bit. Like what you were describing sounds a lot like geocaching 4.0, right? And how would that layer work on the planet where you happen upon this thing, or you purposely have to find certain things in order to unlock other things, or find the directions to the next thing. There's infinite possibilities.
It's like Pokemon Go with real prizes.
Yeah, there you go, with real money. And, that's it. Pokemon Go with real money. That's the elevator pitch. Right?
Richard Harrington, he's a good, close friend of mine. Like he does that with his kids like every weekend, and they love it. And it's like you get into this and you start hiding these things in really clever places, and then you re-hide it. Letterboxing is really cool because you actually end up with physical things that you carry around. So we should have gotten Shatner to carry a couple of those up and then hide them somewhere. Like there are a lot of cool things. We all love puzzle solving and all of these different ways that can enhance an extra layer. If you're standing on the Rialto, and then there are some ways that you can check in, or maybe if you find this one, it's a limited badge, almost like gaming. We love achievements. I use Headspace. I did the 180 days of consecutive meditation, and I'm not gonna lie, I like having that little badge that says 180. I'm gonna hit that 365 one too. This is kind of cool. I use Duolingo every day, and I'm like a 58-day run streak. I'm gonna get to 60. Nice. Then I buy the streak repair. Because these things, it seems superficial, but it's not. The fitness watches and closing the rings have actually shown that people try a little harder to do this. The psychology of it is there, but does this, that integrates into your life, right? Like this is something that you've integrated. This is actually a meta layer that you've integrated. You're not, it's readable, it's measurable, and it's now part of your life. That's what we're really thinking. And it's ambitious, but we're in it for the long haul. And that's really the important thing. And I think all of us as a community need to start thinking about that. This is very different because it seems very different. And to be truth, the technology makes it very different. But it shouldn't be treated as something that's held above something else, or something that you have to have a barrier of entry to understand. And the same people that are saying, we're creating an autonomous company, a DAO, because we don't want ownership, we don't want centralization, we don't want gatekeepers, but you have to pay to be a part of it. It's like, well, okay. I don't really get that. So there are a lot of things where like we are now gatekeepers. We're still climbing to the pile, on top of the pile. We're trying to do this, but all the best things in my life anyway, whether it's books or whether it's experiences, like it's just, my whole life has been like marrying the analog with the digital. I think we were lucky, our generation, we had both and we learned both. There's some real beautiful synergy in working with analog things and finding a way for it to be digital. And one thing I want to say too about the NFT community is this is the hurdle that I have right now. It's like talking to my contacts in the fine art community, veteran photographers, 40, 50-year careers and everything, multiple galleries, and they're not selling NFTs. That's so weird, right? Like if you think about this, like if you could go and you make this joke, right? Like if you want to be a famous fine artist on NFT universe, you just put a .eth and a .f in your name on Twitter, and then suddenly you're a fine artist. Like that's your barrier for entry. Then promote yourself and get into Discord. But you have to think about this as a really interesting thing, right? Photos now are digital, right? So we're not doing anything special about minting them. We're making them unique, right? It's a one of one. It's on the blockchain, on the ledger. It shouldn't be repeated, but it's still digital. It hasn't actually transformed in any way. It's just been saved from Photoshop or Lightroom. the act of actually taking a photo and printing it for a gallery puts it into a tangible object.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same as taking something digital and putting it on a digital display. That's showing something digital on a screen. So to me, it's interesting if you start taking pieces that have been in fine art galleries, that sell in fine art galleries, and then creating an NFT out of that digital file. You have something that had a tangible real life existence and value. And then you're selling a digital version of it that has the same perks of exclusive ownership, where you can trade it, keep it, display it however you want to. And what just is fascinating to me is, even though we talked about how that can be sort of a misled interpretation of what's good in a museum or a gallery, it still had made it to that status, which gives it value in some way.
It has value.
It's gatekeeper. Yeah. But when the NFT things, like, it's like, oh, I just minted a bunch of NFTs. Like, you should check them out and buy them. It's like, it's almost like me going to you and saying, hey, I just wrote a new book and I self-published it. It's like, well, cool. That's cool. It might actually be really good. It might not. We're basically just self-publishing our work right now and saying it has a value. And like you said, that influence can help, other things can help, but it should have more of a value, I think. And I think that if enough companies and enough people get together and figure out a way where we can help those photographers grow their profiles in this world, and in the background help these worlds, different parts of the fine art worlds, work together to start to do this, then we're going to succeed. But at the rate it's going now, with the tiny kingdoms sprouting up as DAOs, and then so many exchanges and people either, there's some really good artists that have just gotten really lucky, or they had a great concept. This is fine, but that's not sustainable for everybody else, and that's really what'll make me sad, is if photographers give up on this in a year because there's no gain on it. I really want everybody to thrive.
It's like, well, why should I jump in now, because the train has already left the station. So bring us home, Elia, on with some future facing stuff, right? With where you guys might be going with area. I mean, we're starting with world, right? So this world. So my question, the obvious question is, if you're selling out 4,000 or a finite number of spots in one drop, let's assume that's going to sell out quickly and be gone. What's next? Do you expand out and say, okay, now we're selling airspace, or do we go to the moon? Do we go to the moon? Do we go to Mars and Jupiter and the moons of Saturn? Do we start selling stars and galaxies? Like, draw the line around this for me.
Well, the tangibility of linking real world projects to geolocations is something we can do. I don't really think we can do that with the moon. It's hard to claim ownership over the moon in any way. It's hard to claim ownership on the Earth, but the moon. I think NASA should do that, right? Like, they're already sending NFTs to space, and that's driving the value. But that's still, when the house on Mars sold for however many millions, I'm just like, what is that? But maybe I'm missing something, and that's, I always feel like, and you will feel when you start to dive into the metaverse, am I missing something here? Why is this, but
I feel like that right now.
No, it's a good question. And when this launches and everybody's able to see the details of the areas, sort of play with them, find out and zoom in, and then start trading and exchanging them, it's going to be a fun commerce. And I'd recommend joining the Discord channel. And, I have not been on Discord for very long. It's been like a year now. I went back to it. I used to use it for gaming, but that's where all the conversations are. That's where all these drops are announced. And they sell out within minutes sometimes, like some of these profile photos. So join the area Discord, and you'll get some more news. But we're going to be rolling out the Explorers Guild. We have a few things planned for expeditions that are only going to be accessible for area holders, different travel perks and different networks of things that they can. We're planning some tokens with some different companies or sponsors where they can burn it for actual real world things or trade it, as an NFT. So this is going to be accessible to the community of area holders first. And when we get to the big photography Genesis drop that I'm going to announce, that's also, we don't know exactly what the priority is going to be, but if something opens at a certain time, area holders will have a sort of a first chance on things. And that's really to sort of reward it and encourage community growth. So we're going to try to incentivize, not just with rewarding them for having supported us, but engaging them. You know, we really want people that like, if you own these too, you have ideas. We really want to make those ideas happen. The same thing with the photography collective that I'm kind of putting together is right now it's, you know, I'm getting close to the 100 photographer mark. And, you know, essentially it's like, I can tell you only so much, but here's what we're planning. And it's photographers actually believe in this sustainable future that we're creating.
Sure.
That's kind of what we're building. So it's a little bit of faith, but it is something that I think it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really cool. And this is just the sort of the phase one. But what's cool about it is everything grows from here. And I have to also say that the price for area is just 0.1 F. Like we put it at
that was
like
my last question.
absolute,
Thank you.
It's absolute bottom. It's 0.1 F. And I know F is up to like $3,500, $3,600. It usually hovers around $3. So it's a few $100s for one of these packs. And that's not much. That's a big floor price, but it's also something that we want to be accessible to everybody. I mean, I look at some of this stuff and I'm like, I have a few F. I'm not going to spend 30 on something, but 0.1 is, it's easy if you think it's going to just be a risk, take a risk or something that you're interested in. It's accessible to everybody. And it's easy. And that way we can build a community that actually wants to be a part of it. Or, you know, we will have people that probably just put it into cold storage and don't say a word, but we want to make it accessible to everybody. So that's really the key, and try to limit the amount that people can buy so we have a big network of people and minds that we can start working together on this.
That's good. Because my big question was, I'm looking at the prices now. Bitcoin is at 57,000 and change. Ethereum's at 3,500. Cardano's at $2, and Doge is at 23 cents right now. So so 0.1 Ethereum
is like $350.
It's like $3
right
yeah,
now. $350. Yeah. So it's not a lot, but it is. I mean, yeah, when it's kind of weird with that fluctuating value, but there's also, when you see a collection of things, you know, CryptoPunks or Creature World or whichever one, you see what's called a floor price, and that's going to be sort of that lowest price. So the idea is, and this is something that we can talk about in the future, once the photography thing is announced, is it makes more sense when you're building your reputation in the industry to leave money on the table for future sales and collectors, right? Like if you sell all your work for 20 F each, I mean, that's great if you sold it, but the resale of that is very limited at that point to who is going to purchase it. But if you open it up to more people, you can give them the ability, as you grow in value, for that to grow in value too. And then that resale is kind of a neat thing. So if you're just getting started in photography and your photo is resold 300 times in a week, I mean, that's huge. You know, that's better than it just sitting there and you're trying to get that max price. You know, so there's a lot of psychology and then good practice for it. And importantly, what we're going to be doing is helping people build this reputation that they deserve in this industry. You know, and that's it. You know, it's important. I want photography to be a part of this. I think it deserves to be, and you know, I think we can do it.
Man, you know, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, because I feel like every time we chat, I come away with a page of notes and my mind blown, you know, and all this stuff that I got to do after this meeting, because, you know, you turn me on all this stuff, then I have to dive into it. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for just, you know, I feel like there's a green strand in your DNA helix, right? Where you're always trying to give back and looking at sustainable ways to do things and helping others, photographers included. And now you're turning your sights on this. So, you know, and honest thank you for doing all that. That's fantastic. There aren't many Elia Locardis on the planet right now. We need a few more of you out there running
you need
around.
name it up. There's only a couple. So although my daughter she's 2 already, so there's a mini me now. She's much cuter than I am. But it is important. I mean, that's really it. And it really, just in this industry and being in it for so long, when I started doing the fine art scene and having things hanging in galleries, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be so pretentious and blah, blah, blah. You know, like I had that conception. Then I get there and everybody's like, "Oh, we're so happy. I love your work. I've watched, and then they want like it's community." And I was like, "Wow, same thing with teaching at some of the bigger events, like Golf Photo Plus when everybody was there. David Hobby, Zach, and all those guys. Like I got there and I'm like, man, I don't know. And everybody's came to me like, "Hey, we're going out. You gotta come. Like we're so happy you're here." Like the best experiences that I've had have been, this feeling of community and welcomeness. And I quickly learned that we're really better when we work together, and you don't have to treat everything that's going on around you as competition. That's a mistake. It's really together where we can win. And if you think about winning the social media or the influence thing, I mean, it gets a little lonely at the top by yourself. When we really start working together, we can create lasting things. And then we can start incorporating, whether that's even a simple carbon offset for now, but when we start talking about how we can work with local community development in these areas that we're promoting, I mean, that will always be an element of this, to the detriment of my own bank account, but I don't care about that. There are easier ways to make money. I should have been a doctor. I could go, do anything else. Mm-hmm. Art is important, has to have passion. And especially being a dad now, like it is so, I used to want to create a world that I wanted to live in. Now it's like, I really, really want this to be here for her. It's very, very important.
Shift. That's a weird shift, right?
It's mind blowing, man. And it was funny. I know we always talk forever, but I was like, everybody always tells you, no, you don't get it. It feels like, I don't know. It's like, whatever. And then you're like, oh, wow. Okay. And then now I don't even try to tell people how it feels. I'm like, just do it, man. I can't, you can't, there's no way you can fathom this feeling until
it's hard to articulate. It's so surreal having a kid, another person that looks like you, right? That kind of sounds and is doing the things that you did when you were that age. And you now have the opportunity. Guess what it feels like, not to go off on a tangent, but it feels like you now have the opportunity to help yourself do better than you did when you were that age. Okay, right? This is my do-over.
You owe me 20% of all future success.
Exactly.
You're not going to screw it up like I did. Yeah. And it's cute at the low age, before they start like not wanting to be seen with you in public and hating you for no reason. And then they get nice again when they're older. But it is important. And that's really where, we'll do another show once this is over, and we'll talk about the Genesis collection. So anybody who's watching now, I mean, I'll tweet about it and maybe put it on Facebook, but I'm not a fan of Discord, but I'm growing to like it just because that's where everybody is. So if you go to area.world, join the Discord. We're creating some photography channels. I have a lot of photography friends in there right now. And the key to this, again, when I say community, it's more like we are going to curate a lot of things, but I want submissions from everybody. I want everybody to be involved in where this is going. I want to put together an advisory board of people from different companies that can help figure out, okay, well, right now this doesn't make sense for Fujifilm and Nikon, but how can we incorporate you in a meaningful way now? Looking towards the future, solving these problems, or solving things before, or helping to make sure things don't become a problem later. Right. And that's really where we don't want this to be, oh, that's just marketing and branding or whatever. It's like, no, there's meaningful ways that this can kind of all intertwine. We just need to start talking about it. So I really want everybody to join, and I want to start having those conversations, because that's what we want to build. We want to build it for you. We want to build it for everybody. We want somewhere where everybody can thrive and be happy to be a part of that. That's really the thing, that's the most important thing. This should be a platform, but it should just be somewhere that you like to go, where you can just get information or really unbiased advice, or feel like you're contributing to something that's changing things. That's the underlying goal.
Love it. All right, we'll leave it right there. Elia Locardi, Thank you, man. Thank you for coming on Area.world. Let's see we'll talk next week and see where things stand. I'm excited.
If you get this out by Friday, everybody will see it. And Saturday is going to be a busy day for us, making sure it's all working.
Oh yeah. This will be out by Friday. Yeah, this will be out.
Awesome. It's always a pleasure, man. Thanks.
Yeah. Likewise. All right, you take care, man. Take care. This is TWiP. This episode was sponsored by MPB, the world's largest online platform for used photo and video kit. Visit mpb.com.